9 of the 10 commandments are still binding, but you're going to claim that the Sabbath itself is not binding and make an exception for 1 out of 10 commandments.
So this is hilarious. The New Testament repeatedly enforces the moral commandments.
Yes, it does.
Of course, Romans 13, 8-10, do not murder, steal, or commit adultery. You're right, immorality bars from the kingdom. The moral law remains binding, but the Sabbath is treated differently from the moral law.
Not at all.
It is not part of it. Colossians 2, 16-17, let no one judge you with regard to a Sabbath. Let no one judge you with regard to a Sabbath. These are a shadow of what is to come. What is a shadow?
Okay, I'd like
temporary, preparatory. They're not binding. James, I want you to give me one example of an early father that interpreted Colossians 2 the way you're interpreting it.
I'm going to decline the pivot and respond to Colossians, because what you've read there.
So you can't answer my question then. You've asked me 3 in a row.
Declining the pivot and answering.
You have asked me 3 in a row, and I can't ask you one. Can you give me one father that interprets Colossians 2 the way you are?
I can give you a reformer.
I don't care for the reformers. They might as well be writing trash like Ellen G. White wrote. It's garbage. Can you give me a writer of antiquity that interprets Colossians 2 the way you're doing it?
I'm going to respond to Colossians.
Can you give me a writer of antiquity? Stop avoiding. I haven't run from you. Can you give me one?
I'm going to respond that Colossians 2 verse 14.
Clearly, I don't know what you think you're doing. I don't know if you can respond, James. Or maybe you've eaten a lot of turkey and your belly's too full, so maybe it's gone to your head and you can't think. Be honest to the audience. Can you give us one author of antiquity that agrees with you on Colossians 2?
I'm not going to answer that right now. Ephesians
Thank
2
you.
verse 15.
You can't do it. You cannot. Now ask your question. You're a fraud, James. You're a fraud.
Ephesians 2 verse 15.
Let's go to Ephesians 2 now.
Yeah, Ephesians 2 verse 15.
What's your question there?
Well, it connects back to Colossians. Take a look at Ephesians 2, verse 15.
Okay, what's your argument?
Okay. So Ephesians 2, verse 15 says he abolished in his flesh the law of commandments expressed in ordinances that he might create in himself one new man in place of the two. So this is clearly pointing to a law that was abolished. Obviously, Christ in Matthew 5, in speaking of the moral law, said, think not that I'm come to abolish the law, but there was a law that was abolished, which was the ceremonial law. If you go back to Colossians 2, the word there in the Greek, if you can look it up in the Strongs, but it is a reference to ceremonial. So my point is that
what's the word in the Greek?
Sabbaths defined in Leviticus 23.
What is the word in the Greek in Ephesians?
Sabbaths.
What is the word in the Greek?
Huh?
What is the word in the Greek? And you've been going on for a long time. I'm going to refute you now in Ephesians 2. What is the word in the Greek?
Colossians 2 verse. Give me just a second.
Ephesians 2, you said. Ephesians 2:15.
Yes.
What is your argument? What's the word in the Greek?
I'm going to get there in just a second. 1 second, okay? So the dogmas, it's Strong's 1378 or dogmas, and
Dogma
it's either civil, ceremonial, or ecclesiastical. We know
legal
Christ didn't abolish the civil or ecclesiastical laws, so it's a reference to ceremonial. And
so let me refute
the other thing too is that
you've gone on for a while in Ephesians. I'm going to refute you now.
Okay.
And if you want to continue interrupting me, that's perfectly fine. The audience can clearly see that you have no answers. Every time I ask you for evidence, you argue and you cry, it's a pivot, and you provide nothing. I hope you clip this, James, and I give you permission to put the whole video in your channel so you can get exposed as a fraud that you are. Ephesians 2:15, we're going to put it for the audience to see. We're going to see what the audience thinks about this one. We're going to see what the audience thinks about this one. By abolishing in his flesh the law of commandments and ordinances that he might create in himself one new man in place of the two, so making peace. This very reading annihilates your Sabbath day keeping. What did Christ actually abolish? If you read it there, you've got Naaman, you've got the law, you've got Entalon for the commandments, you've got ordinances, decrees. He doesn't say some ceremonial traditions were relaxed. No, he says the law of commandments and ordinances was abolished. That includes covenantal commands, written as binding decrees. That's the very category the Sabbath belongs to. And Ephesians 2 is telling you right there, it is abolished. If you look at Ephesians 2, yeah, it lines up beautifully with Colossians 2, which says, having canceled the record of debt with its legal demands, nailing it to the cross, Ephesians 2:15, Christ abolished the law of commandments in ordinances. Colossians 2, those ordinances, dogmata, include the Sabbath. So what we read right here clearly is the Sabbath is included in what was abolished at the cross. There's no way around it textually. You've been
I'll give you the answer to it. There's a couple of points there. First off, Colossians 2:16 speaks about the Sabbath, which was against, or sorry, not the Sabbath, but the commandments contained in ordinances which stood as a witness against thee. It references back to Deuteronomy 31, where the ceremonial law was kept beside the ark and was a witness against the people specifically.
Deuteronomy where? Deuteronomy where? Deuteronomy where?
31.
And you are saying that since Ephesians references back to Deuteronomy, what is your argument?
I'm saying that Colossians references back to, because it says when it's a witness against you, that's a reference in Deuteronomy 31, verse 26 for the ceremonial law. Now, the moral law didn't even reference food and drink, but the ceremonial did in Leviticus 23. There were ceremonial Sabbaths, which I agree were abolished, and to keep those as an offense to Christ. I believe that those ceremonial Sabbaths were abolished. But the Sabbath, the moral Sabbath, and again, this is something that Protestants have long recognized, the distinction between moral and ceremonial.
I want you to show me where the Greek, I want you to show me where the Greek of Colossians 2:14 references Deuteronomy 31. Because I've got the Greek open. You are wrong. It's the wrong covenant category. Okay, I want you to show me where the Greek lines up.
Okay, well, is when it stands as a witness against you.
No, it doesn't stand as any witness, James. It doesn't. I want you to show me where the Greek lines up. You said that Colossians 2:14 was referring back to Deuteronomy 31:26. I've got them both open in the Greek. You don't know any Greek at all. Show me where they are in the same category. The Greek isn't even the same.
Colossians 2, verse 14. Which stood against us and condemned us.
Your Greek is wrong. It's the wrong covenant category. You are wrong. Okay. Colossians 2, by the way, I hate to break it to you, James, but Greek actually matters. You pretend to know Greek, but you don't know any of it. So, when Paul is saying, I'm going to educate you. When Colossians 2, when Paul is saying, having canceled the handwriting of ordinances, the dogma scene, he nailed it to the cross. That is not the same thing as the book of the law or the scroll beside the ark, or even a record of sins. Paul is using legal covenantal language, not ark language, buddy. Deuteronomy 31 is completely different. And I've got the text side by side. They're different, buddy.
There was a covenant that Christ made with the people at Sinai.
So let me ask you before you run off. Everything you ask me, I answer.
Okay.
I'm going to ask you, and I'm getting tired of you running off, James. Everything you ask, William, I don't say I'm going to pivot. I'm going to pivot. No, I'm going to pivot. I provide you replies. I want you to have the same respect, James. So I'm going to ask you, does the Greek of Colossians 2 actually show it as referencing Deuteronomy?
Well, you're comparing, obviously, Greek with what was written in Hebrew in Deuteronomy. So
very clearly, Paul would have utilized the Septuagint, wouldn't he have? If you want to play the Hebrew game, show me where the Hebrew. If you want to play the Hebrew game, show me where there are equivalent words being utilized here. Okay. I can pull up the Hebrew too.
The other, I'm not going to go there right now. But
yeah, you're not going to go there. You're not going to pivot there. You're not going to provide anything, James. We know the spiel.
Hold on,
James. Here's my problem with you. I'm going to be very honest. We know the spiel already. When you have no answer, you're not going to pivot. You're not going to go there. James, what are you going to do? Every time you got something for me, I reply. But when I got something for you, you don't reply.
The other thing that I'd like to
Unbelievable, man. Unbelievable.
The other thing that I'd like to respond to is
make another argument, James.
Made for man, but this is also talking
make another argument, James.
Here, which were against us.
James, so you cannot answer Colossians. It's different category, different Greek. He's not referring to that. You can't deal with that. I've asked you over and over to. I don't even dare to go into the early church because you can't deal with that. Make another argument from the Bible or from early church history. Or allow me to do it. You did a whole video. You should feel proud of your video. Allow me to go to your video and challenge you. No, right?
I see it as going back to Deuteronomy 31, verse 26. When it's referenced.
And asked you to prove it to me via the Greek, and you can't do it.
Okay. Well, you can deny that if you wish. But
I've got the Greek open. You want me to put it up for the audience? Should I put it up for the audience?
Let me ask you this: when you
no. Should I put it up for the audience, James? Yes or no?
when you speak about covenantal language,
That's what
the
I thought.
law that was inscribed
That's
on
what I thought,
stone,
James. You can't even give a yes or no, James.
You mentioned earlier the law that was inscribed on stone is
Make your argument. Ask me a question. Make it. Allow me to ask you after you ask me. You've asked me about 8. I've asked you 1, and you don't answer any of them. Ask me.
I'd like to ask you a question here, just a second. In 2 Corinthians 3:3, where it talks about
2 Corinthians 3:3. Let me open it.
Yeah.
Okay. I like to open in the Greek too, so give me 1 second before you go wild on me. 2 Corinthians, let me just get there, and then you can ask. 2 Corinthians 3:3. Yeah. Ask you and make your argument. I'm going to give you a minute. I'm going to be even kinder, because this has been, I feel so dreadful for you that your career is done after today. I'm going to give you a minute and a half. Read it and formulate your argument. You got a minute and a half.
It says that you show that you are a letter from Christ delivered by us, written not with ink, but with the Spirit of the living God, not on tablets of stone, but on tablets of the human heart. So you've mentioned earlier yourself about the law being written on our heart. And if it's describing here and comparing it to the law written on stone, would you agree that the Sabbath was part of that law written on stone?
Is that your question? So I can deal with it now. Because I'm going to go into it. I'm going to break it down.
Yeah. Would you agree that the law, the Sabbath law, was actually written on stone? Yeah.
So your argument is that since God, I want to clarify for the audience. Let me put the text up. And I want to make sure that I'm getting your argument right. Here's 2 Corinthians 3:3. Your argument is that since God's law is written on the heart, you're saying we're still under that law given on stone. Right.
Yeah, God's original intent was to take the law on stone and actually to write the same law on our heart.
The problem is here is I actually have reading comprehension, and St. Paul is contrasting. He's not continuing the Sinai law. The entire point of this text is a contrast between the two covenants. The old covenant was written on stone. The new was written on hearts. When you look at that phrase there, it is a direct reference to Exodus 34:28. The tablets of stone. St. Paul is saying you are not under what was written on stone. You are under what is written on the heart by the Spirit. You are still under the Spirit in the current time. If he meant you were under the old law, he would have said you're still under that stone law. But he separates stone contra heart as two different covenantal modes. And the immediate context, because I'm reading beyond verse 3, I got my whole Bible open. Just a few verses later, look at what it says. The letter kills, but the Spirit gives life. Verse 7. Now the ministry of death, carved in letters on stone, came with glory. What is the ministry of death? That's the 10 Commandments. It's the covenant code. Right there. That annihilates your whole Sabbath day logic. Annihilates it, man. Brutalizes it. You got anything else? Or is that the best you got?
No, what I think you're confusing here is that if the law is only written on stone and not inscribed in a man's heart.
The new covenant is written on our hearts. The text says it right there. The ministry of death is carved in letters and stone. That's the 10 Commandments. It's a covenant code.
Okay.
And in 2 Corinthians 3:11, it tells you right there, for what was transient has come to an end. What is permanent endures. And then even worse for you. For to this day, hold on, let me finish. Even it gets worse. Verse 13. For to this day, when they read the old covenant, that same veil remains. He is explicitly calling the stone tablet law that you think we're still under, the old covenant, transient, and a ministry that came to an end. Doesn't support you in any way at all. And I know that maybe I can ask you, okay, well, do you have anybody in the early church that supports you? And you're not going to give me any, right? You're not going to give me any.
As far as the video goes, people can go back and take a look and see. We have.
Well, why don't we deal with your arguments here?
Who did keep the Sabbath within the early church?
Well, why don't we go to that right now? You have given me about 10 questions. I haven't given you any. Can we go to your video?
I'm curious, though. I wanted to ask you something honestly.
You've asked me about 10 times, James. Can I ask you one question now? I mean, you produced that video. You should feel comfortable with it, right?
Yeah, people can go back and take a look.
Yeah, okay. Well, if people can go back and take a look, how about we deal with it then? Can we deal with it?
Before we go there, I'd like to ask you a question.
Okay.
What do you recognized and actually referenced our position. You asked if there was anybody before us who
Position
believes
is a
the same
cult.
that we do. Am I correct in that question from yesterday?
No, you're not correct.
Well, okay.
I asked you if there was anybody specifically anybody in the early church, any Christians that believe this wacky position, and there are none. Before you came on, a few of your cult members tried to make the case. They did miserably. Then you came on, highfalutin, thought you could make a case and did okay. And then the show had to end because I had to go eat and take care of my daughter. And people thought I was running. If they just watched this whole first hour, I think they probably would have wished you would have never come back if they're Seventh-day Adventists because of what I've done to you today. And we're not even done yet.
One of the other points that I was going to make is Christ said in Matthew 24 to pray that your flight be not on the Sabbath, nor on the winter, nor on the Sabbath day.
Let's go to Matthew 24.
Referencing the end of the world, but also Jerusalem there.
Let's go to Matthew 24. What verse are you going to? Let's open it up.
Well, 1 second.
I'll open it up myself. You take your time. I'll open it up.
Verse 20. Pray that your flight.
I'm opening it up. Pray that your flight may not be in winter or on a Sabbath.
Yeah.
Wow.
Christ is referencing that there as
what was this? Because I know what Matthew 24 is about. What was this entire discourse triggered by? What was it triggered by?
It was triggered as Christ came in verse 20 or chapter 23, coming to the hills.
24, 1-2. What do they ask him? What is the question they ask him?
Well, they asked about the end of the age, and so or the
it's
end of the world. It's
a question about the temple. You see all things, do you not? 24, 1-2. Truly I say to you, there will not be left here one stone upon another. When was that prophecy fulfilled?
It was also fulfilled in about 70 AD. With
exactly. 70 AD with the destruction of Jerusalem and the temple.
Yes.
Under Jewish legal conditions, not Christian church law. He's talking about a Jewish city under Jewish law that clearly had the Jewish Sabbath in place. Of course he's going to talk about the Sabbath. This is before the cross.
Why would
hold on, brother, I'm answering you. This is before the cross, before the resurrection, before Pentecost. So the setting is Old Covenant Jerusalem. That's the clear context.
Events after the cross, though.
No, sir. He's referring to AD 70, as you just admitted, the destruction of Jerusalem and the temple. No, sir, it is not.
Why would Christ care about,
he's referring.
Hold on. Why would Christ care about them, about the Sabbath at all, if this was after the cross? Why would he ask them to pray that your flight be not on the Sabbath?
I know that it's difficult for you to understand, but this is before the cross. This is before the cross, and the prophecy is fulfilled in AD 70. That is when the prophecy is fulfilled. When he's talking, it is before the cross and before the resurrection. The prophecy is fulfilled in AD 70 at the destruction of Jerusalem and the temple. That is when the prophecy is fulfilled. That is why he uses that language. It is not about the post-resurrection church. And I dare say nobody in antiquity would believe or hold to your view either.
I'm surprised. Honestly, I'm surprised that you take that argument because
I'm surprised you're a Seventh-day Adventist, buddy.
Most people that I've talked to take the position of claiming, well, Christ was worried about the gates being closed that day.
I don't care. The city gates were closed on the Sabbath.
Well, the problem with that argument is in Jeremiah 17, the entire reason that Jerusalem was burned to the ground was because they failed to keep the gates closed.
That doesn't change anything of what Christ is speaking of at all.
Well, I believe
changes nothing. Doesn't support your position at all.
I believe that Christ is speaking about the continued sanctity of the Sabbath, that his people, his believers, he specifically warning them even about
people are confused
after the cross.
I think people are confused because very clearly AD 70 is after the cross, but I'm imagining that people don't understand things. They have trouble understanding that I said the prophecy is fulfilled in AD 70 with the destruction of Jerusalem and the temple. So what would Jesus be talking about? A Jewish city, geniuses, under Jewish law, brainiacs, with a Jewish Sabbath enforcement still in place. That is before the cross. That is before the resurrection. That is before Pentecost. The prophecy is fulfilled in AD 70. I don't know what else needs to be said.